अनम्यूट कीजिए, अनम्यूट सुनाई नहीं दे रहा.
It's my privilege and honor to invite Ram Sewak. We have known each other since we joined the academy, and he is one of those rare officers who reinvented himself mid-course. And this was a very tough challenge, which most of us do not or accept. But he went to Berkeley, I think, when we were directors, to complete his master's and PhD. And another anecdote, if I remember correctly, you did software designing while you were DC in Hazaribagh or someplace.
Yeah.
And
ये आपके बारे
that continuity, I think, has, it finally brought him to the point where he was picked up by the government to head the Aadhar team along with Nandan Nilekani. So I'll stop here.
Yeah.
I think
No, आपके बारे में बात कर रहे थे before you joined his long association with you. So now may I request Pushkar, आप
Yes, I am available.
जी हाँ, please.
भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Friends, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this edition of Vimarsh Talks. As you know, we try and choose topical issues of national importance, and we also invite eminent personalities who have intimate knowledge of their subject. So today we are going to discuss the digital leap that India has taken in the last few years and how it has begun to transform India in practically every area, every sphere, every domain. And the reason is because India had the foresight, the government had the foresight to announce a series of policies to build digital infrastructure in the country. And that created the right conditions for a digital revolution in the country. So in 2015, the government had announced a Digital India program, which is now almost 5 years old. And during this period, tremendous progress has been made in setting up the digital infrastructure. And as a result, now we have a wide variety of applications which are now in operation, in existence. And they have created the conditions for, I would say, revolution in a variety of fields. Today, for instance, Aadhar was being mentioned. I think that is really the bedrock of our Digital India leap. More than 1 billion people have today an Aadhar identity, and Aadhar itself has become a foundation for so many other activities, which has helped bring digital revolution to India. We have GST network. That's another major national platform, and which is playing a very important role in nation building. We have the JAM Trinity, which is also, as you know, has revolutionized the way we handle the direct benefit transfers and how it has empowered the ordinary people in this country. Then, of course, the great revolution in e-commerce that we are witnessing. During the COVID times, we are seeing rather a transformation of the education sector, the health sector, and many other social sectors. All this has been possible because programs like Digital India, which had clutch of schemes, things like taking the optical fiber to the panchayats, for instance, the BharatNet program, or the applications in financial applications. Today we have UPI. So there's massive databases that have been created, and the process is still continuing. The digital infrastructure is still being built, and but the fruits are already visible. We cannot really today think of India without the computer, the smartphone, and the numerous applications which are now, without our knowing, we are actually using. And today, this virtual platform that we are talking on is one such example. In the process, it has also created a very vibrant uh, e-governance uh, e-governance environment in the country. So state after state are now using the digital infrastructure that we have and numerous digital applications trying to reach out to the people. And this, of course, has had many positive impacts like the reduction in corruption, more transparency, and so on. And similarly, we can another important, I think, aspect is the creation of the uh, uh, our technology development in the country. Today, I think we are at the forefront. The startup ecosystem is also growing. More than 10,000 startups today are involved in this. Uh, to talk about all this today, we have a very eminent personality with us, Dr. R.S. Sharma, uh, who was the chairman of the TRAI for about 5 years, 2015 to 2020. And he was also the Director General of first Director General of the Aadhar program when he was working with Mr. Nandan Nilekani. He has made enormous contribution to the growth of telecom sector, to the growth of, he was also Secretary MAT, so MAT, and in that capacity, launching of the Digital India program itself. So there are many contributions he have made in the development of the ecosystem, digital ecosystem in the country. So we are very happy that he's with us. He's an IAS officer of 1978 batch, and he has a PhD in computer sciences, and he has also an MTech master's degree in computer science, and he's alumni of IIT Delhi and IIT Kanpur. He was also chief secretary at of the government of Jharkhand before he became secretary of the Ministry of Information Technology. So we could have had a better person than him to tell us how the billion in India are taking advantage of the digital revolution and how their lives are being transformed. And with the transformation of their lives will come the transformation of India, and which in turn will really place India in the global hierarchy. So I think it's a very important topic, and we have a very important and eminent person to talk about this. So now I request Dr. R.S. Sharma to kindly make his remarks, and thereafter we'll have a question and answer session. So, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, and my friends Dinkar, and I see Suresh Goyal also, of course, many prominent members of the Vivekananda International Foundation. It's my pleasure and privilege to talk to you today afternoon about the digital leapfrog which India has made in the last about 6-7 years. It is a journey which I'll talk about. And let me begin with the Digital India program. So I just want to start with an anecdote. I had joined as secretary of the Department of Electronics and IT on 1st of May 2014, and the new government under the Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji came to power on 26th of May 2014. And in sometime in the month of June, July, we were told that the Prime Minister would like to launch a program called Digital India. And I was asked to prepare a broad outline of the program. So as like a typical bureaucrat, I consulted all my joint secretaries and everybody and said, let's prepare a Digital India program. So all these people, put together certain projects and said, this is what is Digital India. So we took it to the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister's kind of listened to us very patiently, as he does every time we talk to him. But thereafter he said, नहीं शर्मा जी, ये मेरा उद्देश्य नहीं है. Digital India कुछ ज्यादा ये जो आप बना के लाए हैं, ये काम की चीज नहीं है. And he says that forget about the money, how much money will be spent. Forget about other parameters. Just think of a program which will make India into a digitally empowered society and a knowledge economy. So that's the broad, parameter which the Prime Minister gave us. And then, of course, that kept us thinking with the help of the Prime Minister's office, and all of us sat down together and we crafted out a program. And fortunately, it came out very well. And it weaves together a number of attributes. So he says, what things you require? And we said it requires three things essentially. One is it requires digital infrastructure as a utility to citizens, which means connectivity, ubiquitous connectivity, and other kinds of digital infrastructure. Also includes digital identity infrastructure, digital payment infrastructure, and other kinds of soft infrastructures too. And then it requires software and services, because what use is digital infrastructure if you can't have software running on that infrastructure which can deliver services? So we said software and services on demand is another vision area of this Digital India. And the last but not the least was citizens empowerment, because even if you have software and services but citizens are not empowered to use those software and services, then also it becomes a useless stuff. So therefore we came up with three vision areas. One, digital infrastructure. Second, software and services riding on that digital infrastructure. And third, citizens empowerment, which basically will enable people to use this infrastructure, which will be inclusive and which will include everybody in the country. So that's how Digital India came. And as you rightly pointed out, essentially that is powering the entire concept. Janadhan, Aadhar, and mobile, jam trinity, entered the lexicon in the economic survey of 2015. We used jam trinity and wiping everybody's tears. There is a chapter on jam in the economic survey of 2015. And then that became a very, very empowering trinity of service delivery, of actually empowering people. So all these concepts have been going on, and along with these concepts, they are not merely theoretical constructs. Essentially, it actually involves a lot of these hard stuff, hard projects, hard service deliveries, which are there. And I am going to talk about how we have built over the last few years a digital infrastructure for use of billions, because essentially it's not a small country or a small number of people, and it's also an extremely diverse country. And therefore, whatever we have to make it at a scale. We have to do it at a speed, and we have to do it at a frugal cost, less cost. So these are some of the attributes which we actually have sort of incorporated in all the digital artifacts which India has created over the last 5-6 years. So let me just share with you the presentation. Uh, This is, I call this building for a billion. So let me describe a scene, which is basically, this is broad. I'll divide this my intervention into three parts. One is India's digital leapfrog, what we have done during the last few years, and then of course I also will touch upon the challenges of the big tech era, which means the firms like Amazon, Google, all kinds of, these Facebooks. What kind of challenges do they actually pose? And of course, the way forward, how do we meet these challenges? But largely, as Dinkar had kind of told me, I'll focus on the India's digital leapfrog, and of course, I'll briefly touch upon the other two aspects. So let me begin with the in 2008, we had only 17% people had bank accounts. Only 15% out of those 17% used digital payments. The tele density, which is basically out of 100 people, how many people own telephone or mobile, it was 37%. And 1 in 25 had a unique ID document, which is largely passports. Very few people had, and this is the unique ID, digital, ID document which people had. And financial exclusion was rampant. Why? Because poor persons, even if they had a document somehow to open a bank account, first of all, document non-availability was a problem. But then even if they had a document, the amount of money they were going to deposit was so small, and the cost of acquisition of customers, paperwork, etc. was so large that bankers will say कि भाई 100 रुपया जमा करके क्या फायदा, हम 150 रुपया तो आपको कस्टमर बनाने में खर्च करेंगे. तो उनके लिए इस फायदे का सौदा नहीं था. Therefore, they were not interested in opening bank account. And if you asked any bank wala at that point in time, they will say, साहब कोई interested ही नहीं, कोई बैंक अकाउंट खोलना ही नहीं चाहता. So, they made it feel as if there's no demand. The fact of the matter was that there was no supply. So that's the situation in 2008. Now, straight away, let's jump to 2020. We have 700 million unique mobile connections, and we have 1.2 billion overall connections. Some people have 2. So essentially 1.2 billion mobile connections we have today. We have 1.22 billion Aadhar enrollment. So digital identity 1.22 billion thus far. We have 636 million internet users. The number of internet users in 2008 was minimal. And we have, in one single month, we have 2 billion transactions on UPI, Unified Payment Interface, which Dr. Gupta talked about. This is the level, and we transact 3.6 lakh crores in one single month. This is actually larger than any of the debit card, credit card, all card transactions. It's much more than them, and I'll show you a graph later which will basically demonstrate the scale of these transactions. And of course, we have 81% adults with bank accounts today. Every adult person in each household has a bank account. Many have more than one. And of course, we have 10 million registered businesses. And I'm saying basically not out of air. I'm just not making a cup name around. नीचे source दिया हुआ है, TRAI, UIDAI, GSMA, NPCI, World Bank, and of course GST network. So these are all authentic figures. This is where we have traveled from 2008 to 2020. Now, this progress was created by, accelerated by creation of India Stack. That's what we call. This is basically, India Stack is nothing but a set of public digital infrastructure, both hardware and software. So for example, physical infrastructure gives you rail, roads, it's physical infrastructure, but digital infrastructure solves a service gap. So this is what we have done, and we have actually created infrastructure which is not in silos, but which is connected infrastructure and connected through open, what we call APIs, which is the application programming interface, which is like a connectors, it is like open connectors we have got. somebody can just, plug in and start playing. So India Stack, talking of India Stack, and it's not a proprietary stuff. This is just India Stack means set of artifacts and products which India has created. So it has broadly, like Digital India program, this also has three broad layers. So one is called the identity layer, which is, I'll talk about Aadhar. And this identity layer is fundamental because you cannot accept or you cannot access any formal institution without, telling you who you are, without proving who you are. So actually verifiable digital identity is one thing which we have created and which no other country has created at this scale and in this frugal manner. Similarly, we have payments layer, which is basically allowing anyone to pay. So it's a completely interoperable payment layer. And of course, on top of it, we have data layer because we are producing huge amount of data. So how we can use the data to empower our own people is what is this particular layer talks about. So let me go back to the identity layer. So identity layer, we created Aadhar, which is the 1.22 billion I talked about. Now this essentially Aadhar created a number of artifacts on top of it. Aadhar is like a foundational identity. It is bereft of any eligibility. It just says X is X. So essentially, whether X is eligible for an LPG subsidy or food stuff, etc., is not really Aadhar's problem. Aadhar just provides a number unique to an individual, and that number is also has with it a service of authentication, which means you can remotely prove that you are you. So essentially, this is what we did, and then on top of it, electronic KYC, which means in a paperless way, you can direct Aadhar authority to give your digitally signed document in identity document to whomsoever you want to give. So for example, if you are buying a SIM, a mobile SIM, you can do it in a paperless manner by just authenticating yourself and then asking Aadhar, digitally asking Aadhar to provide a document, electronic KYC, electronic know your customer. And that KYC goes directly to the database of the telco, which actually is required, and it requires in paper form. Now it goes in a digital form. So essentially, without using any paper, you can get a mobile SIM in no time. And of course, India has uniquely devised what is called digital signature on demand, which means that I don't have to have a dongle. Typically, many of you may be familiar that we used to have these dongles, digital signature, which is basically a public key private key pair, where we used to plug in that dongle in a computer to sign a document digitally. Now that identity is available online, then using that identity, I can generate a digital pair online, which means from a capital based dongle stuff, I have got into an OPEX based. So when you file, for example, an income tax return, you must have seen, when you file income tax return, you give your Aadhar number. Aadhar number actually verifies your mobile number and say, yes, you, and then it actually digitally signs the income tax returns and send it to income tax department. So now you are not required to sign it and put it in a lifafa and send it to Bangalore for your processing center. Now you can just do it online. This is actually a result of a digital signature, e-sign. And none of these is actually any compromise. It doesn't compromise the security. It doesn't compromise the authenticity of any of these things. Similarly, payments layer, we created a number of artifacts, IMPS, Aadhar payment bridge, which basically without bank account itself, you can use it for direct benefit transfer. Now, Aadhar can be a financial address of a person. So, for example, if the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana is sending money, 500 rupees per month to large number of 300 million people, it actually just uses their Aadhar numbers, and it doesn't even bother to figure out which bank their accounts are, because that is the banking system figures it out, NPCI figures it out. So therefore, it reaches directly the bank account. It's possible because you created a bridge between the bank account and the Aadhaar number in a way that Aadhaar number becomes a virtual payment address of a person. Now, if those who don't have a bank account, you can have biometric payments can be done through Aadhaar enabled payment systems. Similarly, UPI, Bharat Bill Payment System. So basically, you don't have to bother now. Every month, the bill can come. So billers are on one place. They have been put on a platform. They can actually, send money, send demands, invoices, and then there is a payment system which actually can digitally pay the bill. So it's a huge system which has been created. Now, then of course, we created DigiLocker. The Prime Minister was saying, let us provide a private space on a public cloud to each person. And we can do that now because we have a digital identity. So on that basis, we created digital locker. And of course, we created consent artifact. People are talking of how do you give consent to your data. India has solved that problem by giving a digital consent artifact. So I'll talk about that. And of course, we have account aggregators, which is data fiduciary. That also I'll talk about. So let's talk about Aadhaar. Now, Aadhaar, this we had, people, the people did not have the verifiable identity. And then if you don't have verifiable identity, you cannot access any formal system. This resulted into leakages. So this, duplication and ghosts in government services, subsidies. So for example, in some states, the number of ration cards at that time used to be 30% more than the number of families, which means that at least 30% were bogus. Maybe some people were not there in the ration card system and the number could have been, bogus number could be more. But a minimum 30%, ghosts and duplicates. People were actually gaming the system by creating multiple identities. There's a lady in Faridabad. There was a case of a lady in Faridabad who had got 932 PAN cards. So she was actually avoiding the income tax payments using this, these multiple PAN cards on a single person. So you had number of examples, and the whole world actually was struggling with that. In 2006, there was a committee under Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, the then External Affairs Minister, to figure out as to how to create these identities, how to create a unique identity. So that is what the issue was. Now, we created, India created Aadhaar. That identity I talked about is foundational, which means that it is not connected with any eligibility. It just proves that an individual, and this foundational actually makes it usable in any domain. So you can use it for opening bank account, because please remember, in any transaction, identity is one component. For example, you want to open a bank account or you want to take a loan from the bank. Now, identity you prove first, and then you can probably have other eligibility criteria. So what Aadhaar went about doing was, as in mathematics you say highest common factor, and actually identity was the HCF of all the domains. So we said let's solve that part, and if you solve that part, then each domain can reduce their work, because now they're not concerned with proving the identity that I am R.S. Sharma. Somebody else does that for them. Now they are actually concerned only with proving the other eligibility criteria, whether R.S. Sharma is a good creditor or not, is a good credit history or not. So that way, what we did was we actually minimized everybody's problem, and that gave the maximum benefit for the expenditure which we did. So essentially, that's the whole philosophy. It was minimal because it did not require any data except name, date of birth, gender, address, mobile, email. That was optional. It was unique. It was lifetime, because basically mobile numbers, when you kind of sort of surrender it, they are given to somebody else. But Aadhaar, once given to a person, is not given to anybody, because we have 100 billion numbers available. It's a random number of 12 digits, and 12 digits में से 11 digits real number है, 12वां digit check digit है. 11 numbers can create 10 to the power 11, which is actually 100 billion numbers. So out of 100 billion, we are using only 1.22 billion. So that's how it is. And of course, we have iris and fingerprints, and that is required for generating identity unique, because nature has created, or God has created, whichever way you look at it, the certain attributes which are unique to an individual, and a combination of two factors, which is the iris and fingerprints, make each individual unique, and that becomes the basis. And these two things are used again to authenticate a person again and again and again. Now, Aadhaar is the world's largest biometric identification system. Actually, people use biometrics only for criminal, forensic purposes. Ungliyon ke nisaan crime scene pe mil gaya. That is what was happening. But India used our biometric system for development purposes. So this is, and we were enrolling at the rate of 2 million per day at its peak, and at the lowest cost of the world, and $1 per person. The UK's identity card actually was, the London School of Economics had done a study that UK's identity card will cost £135 per card, and Aadhaar cost $1 per Aadhaar number. So this is, you can imagine, if £135 were there per number, then £135 multiplied by 1 billion or 1.2 billion would have been trillions and trillions of pounds. So this is how Aadhaar numbers grew. Now, it's also very interesting, just to give you a comparison, that Aadhaar is one of the only 7 global platforms to reach billion. There are only 7 platforms, which is Microsoft Office, Google Search, Gmail, YouTube, Android, Facebook, WhatsApp, Apple App Store, WeChat. These are some of the very, very large platforms. Now, Windows took 25 years to reach a billion. Google Search took 12 years to reach a billion. YouTube, etc., they took so many years that years are written here. And Aadhaar actually took 5.5 years to reach 1 billion. And this is also, all the other systems are private systems. This is the only government system. And this is the only non-US system which reached 1 billion. Into the scale is enormous. That's something which I wanted to, excuse me. Then, it basically, what it does, it eliminates physical presence and it eliminates paper-based. The Prime Minister had actually directed us that we should create artifacts for a cashless, paperless, and presence-less government. Presence-less, paperless, and cashless. And that is what we actually created. And he also said that the whole digital system should be convenient, confident, and cost effective. Convenient as in people should find it easy to do it. Confident means people should have trust in the digital systems. And finally, it should be cost effective. It should not be very costly, otherwise people will not use it. So these are some of the guiding principles which the government has provided, and actually all of us together have created this wonderful infrastructure. Unfortunately, in our country, people unnecessarily create controversies for something which is good. Aadhaar has gone through such, a huge amount of challenges of any kind. People, they were deliberate and manipulated, sort of campaigns ran against Aadhaar, because all these big tech giants don't want India to create its own digital identity. They say हमारे काम use कीजिए ना, Facebook use करके अपना subsidy लीजिए, Facebook use कीजिए. In Pakistan they are doing it, Facebook or some other parts. The Visa is doing something there. So essentially they don't want. In fact, in ITU we had wanted a project to their digital identity project, and you will not believe some of these players who are now become members of the ITU, International Telecommunication, they opposed it. The Facebook and Google opposed this project of digital identity in Africa and other countries. So this is a huge, and I am sure Ambassador Srivastav and Ambassador Goyal will corroborate that part as to how the digital diplomacy plays out and actually how they protect their turf. Now, what has been the impact of identity infrastructure? So it is not as if we are just sort of talking in air. One is 1.22 billion Aadhaar. Now 33 billion Aadhaar-based authentications have taken place since inception. Now 33 billion is 3,300 crores, which means हिंदुस्तान के हर आदमी ने कम से कम 33 बार ये आधार का ऑथेंटिकेशन किया. एवरेज की बात कर रहा हूं मैं. सम पीपल माइट नॉट हैव डन इट, सम हैव डन इट. एंड दिस इज ऑल फॉर सर्विस डिलीवरी. ये राशन लेने के लिए लोगों ने इस्तेमाल किया है, बैंक अकाउंट खोलने के लिए इस्तेमाल किया है, इसको आपने पैसा निकालने के लिए इस्तेमाल किया है. तो दिस इज व्हाट पीपल आर डूइंग एवरी डे, एवरी मंथ. The authentications are more than a billion every month. Every person on an average is using authentication. 7.5 billion electronic KYC transactions, and of course 410 million newly opened Jan-Dhan bank accounts. I'll talk about this. This is extremely important. And we are transferring world's largest cash transfer program, direct benefit transfer. We are doing 3.8 lakh crore. Imagine we have 140 million LPG customers in this country. और हर आदमी को 12 LPG सिलेंडर्स अलाउड हैं. तो आप सोचिए कि 12 सिलेंडर मल्टीप्लाई बाय 14 करोड़, which is about 150-200 crore. Now this is basically 14 crore और 200 crore. 200 crore क्रेडिट ट्रांजेक्शंस केवल एलपीजी सिलेंडर में 50-50 रुपए के होते हैं. This is how can you ensure a 50 rupees transaction? You can ensure because the cost of per transaction is almost zero. It doesn't mean anything. It means only the credit entry into a person's account, debit entry into government's account, and that's the end of the story. So essentially, the whole thing has become digital, hassle-free, costless, and that is how we are able to do things at an extremely high scale. Now, the Bank of International Settlements Analysis, BESL, had made a projection that depending on per capita GDP, how many people would be sort of banked. And they had said that if you have a 22,000 per capita GDP, sorry, 80% bank accounts will happen. Now, by that logic, it would have taken 46 years for India to actually reach that level of GDP and then, of course, account. Now, what we did in just about 3-4 years, we reached 80%. So actually, we have crossed all these. This is phenomenal. This is India got there in 6 years in place of 46 years. This is the financial inclusion we created, and the world is envious of that. How can everybody in India have bank accounts? And bank accounts with such minor, deposits like 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 1,500 rupees. It is, really, really wonderful, which is what has happened. So this is how we have solved that problem, and all because of digital identity, which is portable, which is, in fact, portability. Talking about portability, now it's possible for me. Suppose I'm a person from Jharkhand, and I am doing some work in Delhi, and my family is living in Ranchi. It is possible now for me to get a part of the ration from Delhi and a part of the ration from my family in Ranchi, because my identity is portable and my entitlement of ration is portable. It's also on the cloud. So which means that now I can take benefits from anywhere. And once I start taking benefits from anywhere, the whole equation between the ration shop owner and the customers change, because now I am not dependent on a particular ration shop owner. I can go to any shop and get my ration. So these are some of the things which happen when you go digital and portable. Talking about the M part of GEM, which is the mobile. Now, the mobile in 2009, we used to have about 400 million connections. Today, we have 1.2 billion connections. In that period, we had about more than 1,100, 1,200 rupees as the ARPU, as they say, average revenue per user. Today, we have 89 or 100 rupees per ARPU. So the rates have crashed. The numbers have increased. And of course, as you know, India is talking because now the voice calls are more or less free. So this is how the telecom revolution has taken place. And many users are accessing 4G internet speeds with quotas of 1 GB per day, 1.5 GB per day. So imagine from 300 rupees per gigabyte, the cost is now on an average 8 rupees per gigabyte. Of course, telcos are trying and telcos are saying, but that's how this market economy functions. So this is the revolution which has been created in the mobile world, mobile data speed, and I think we are way ahead on the 5G part also. Hopefully, we will be ahead on the curve. Coming back to the payments, you know, again, as I said, these are very low statistics which happened. High cost of transactions. This was their fragmented digital payment. Now we created actually uh, built to transfer money, withdraw money, and pay bills and merchant. If you remember, if you know, in Europe, if you pay money, transfer money from one bank to another, Western Union, money transfer, etc., it costs a huge amount of money. Actually, in terms of rupees, it will cost you 500 rupees, 600 rupees to transfer, let's say $500. Now here, it costs nothing. In fact, the guys are paying you back. They are probably also giving you rewards for doing of course, they are using your data, but that's how things are happening. So we had multiple payments option, Aadhar enabled payment system if you don't have a bank account, Aadhar payment bridge, which basically direct benefit transfer. We have 110 million fast tags. You can digitally pay on the barriers and other kinds of toll plazas. Unified payment interface, Bharat bill payment system. All these revolution in payment has happened, and I don't think such parallel revolution has happened anywhere in the world. Now, what we did, it's very interesting. In Kenya, people are talking. There's a software called M-Pesa. M-Pesa became very famous because the company called Safari.com, they started this M-Pesa project. Now, what used to happen is that from mobile to mobile, you can pay money. So mobile companies became the payment companies. So that's how it was happening, but it could not scale up because ultimately, if Airtel customers can pay only Airtel customers, then the whole thing gets fragmented. Now, similarly, every bank was putting up applications, you use the bank and all that. So what we did, and actually we did something very revolutionary, I must say. We created unified payment interface. What is that? That's actually a set of protocols. It's not an application as such. We prescribe, this is like a common language. We said this is the language which all the institutions involved in payment ecosystem will speak, which means a bank will expose its stuff so that if somebody comes with authenticated credentials, it can fetch the balance, it can actually take money out. So essentially, we unbundled this entire thing. We unbundled. It's not as if the banks themselves will do the payment system. We unbundled the payment system from the bank. We commoditized the payments. And by commoditization, I mean we created a language of money transfer, which essentially, created this kind of ecosystem. Now imagine it's universally interoperable. I can transfer money from any bank to any bank, from any bank to any wallet. That's one part. It is single payment address. Now, if you want to actually give money to me, you just say RS Sharma 3 at OK SBI, which means you don't even need to know my bank account, which means that there's a huge amount of privacy which is there. Otherwise, every merchant will have bank account number and IFSC code written on their invoices. So this is single payment address and virtual payment address, VPA as we call it. It is low cost. It's virtually no cost. It's free, and of course, mobile first. So basically, using your mobile, you can do transactions. This is the payment system which has been created. Today morning only, I was speaking somewhere about this whole payment system, and I was telling them that we have no comparable payment system anywhere in the world. In fact, the Google has actually recommended to Federal Reserve in America that we need to replicate the NPCI's this UPI. And UPI, by the way, has gone to Singapore and many other countries. The Prime Minister himself had probably launched it somewhere outside the RuPay card and this payment application. Now, the number of transactions on UPI, you see the blue line which has just gone out of the paper, the graph. This is what happened. Now, this red line actually credit card at point of sale. This is the red line, the number which is there, and this is the blue line. So this is the it has surpassed many times the number of transactions on card. So this is what is happening. Now, actually, every infrastructure which India has built is inclusive. Inclusion is the key word in development of infrastructure, which means whether it is old people, people with feature phones only, people with smartphones only, all people, all are welcome. So we create solutions which are not really specific to a particular user group. We create solutions which are inclusive in nature. So that's how this whole payment system has. Now, let me come to the data part. So data, as you know, this digital revolution having taken place, it has created a huge amount of data. But who benefits of the data? Actually, the internet platforms gather huge amount of data and proprietary silos, and they misuse the data. You have heard of Cambridge Analytica. You have heard of many things. So, and I'll talk about that briefly. But this is what they do, and they basically monetize the data. They do AI on the data, artificial intelligence. They do all kinds of technology, value add, and finally. So basically, this is not the problem is that they are benefiting, and maybe one can rationalize by the fact that they are benefiting, but they are giving us some services free. So basically, if you are getting something free, then you are the product, as saying goes, that if you are not paying for anything, then you are the product yourself. So that's what is happening. But the problem is that the people are not benefited by the data. If my data is being sucked up by Google's or Facebook's or Amazon's, I'm not getting any benefit out of it. They are actually manipulating my mind, saying that, oh, you bought this, then you should also buy this. This is a recommendation for you. So they are doing all kinds of, the Israeli sort of philosopher Yuval Noah Harari has written about that the next stage in human evolution is going to be hacking of the brains, hacking of the brain. So this is what people do. They manipulate my choices. Even they manipulate the political choices. And you have heard of the Facebook the scandals and all that, manipulating elections. So India is actually, what we are doing is, we thought, if okay, companies are using my data, how about me using my data? After all, who owns the data? If I did a transaction on Google, or Google Pay or something, is it not me? Maybe Google Pay will also have that data on the platform, but I should also have that. I should also be able to use that data. So actually, with that thought in mind, and how should I be able to use my data? I will be able to use, let's say, getting credit. For example, if I've been paying the mobile bills regularly, then probably the credit company or anybody, bank or whatever, will think that I am a credit worthy person. So essentially, this is what we are doing. So India is rebalancing that equation of data being used by people who own the data. Now, who controls the data? So basically, the philosophy is put the user in the control of the data. So data is used to sell things to the user, but data can be also used to empower the user. So we are actually creating legal frameworks, technology framework, and ecosystem of private players who are able to do that. So this is personal data protection bill. Hopefully, will be coming up soon. Of course, it's pending before Parliament since last 2 years, and it has been in the making for quite some time now. But anyway, it comes. I think we will have all the pieces of the puzzle in place, which is technology, also the private participation, and also the legal framework. Now, how does, just to explain to you, it becomes a little clumsy, but let me just sort of give you a broad thought that there are people who are the what we call financial information provider. Let's use the data in the financial world. So on the left side, you see bank, mutual fund, insurance, tax, GST platform, and even TRAI, telecom companies. They are the ones who can actually provide information about my transactions which I did. There are other people, similar people, who basically consume that information. So basically, the banks can consume the information, the insurance agencies can consume the information, and other guys, the same fellows on the left side can also become on the right side. So essentially, there are producers and there are consumers. Now, and there is an individual sitting in between.
His data is with the producers, but he wants his data to go to the consumers because he wants a loan from a bank and he wants to produce some digital footprints of his transactions in the past to essentially say that I am credit worthy and I can get interest at a lower bank loan at a lower interest rate. So how does it happen? India has created an ecosystem. For example, the Reserve Bank of India has actually given sort of license to two entities, consent managers. They are called account aggregators. So account aggregators actually are the fiduciary on behalf of the individual. So an individual, for example, wants a loan from SBI, and he has been having some kind of account operation with Bank of India and maybe some Paytm wallets or maybe Telecom, etc. So he just gives that digital consent token which I talked about to this fiduciary. And mind you, this is all happening in a digital world. It's not happening physically that I go there and मैं उसको कहता हूँ भाई ले मेरा ये ले. So this what happens is once the fiduciary has got the digital token, he approaches all these institutions, and again through open digital APIs, these institutions transfer my information to this fiduciary who doesn't consume the information, who doesn't even see the information. It is actually done in an encrypted manner and is actually submitted back to the individual or to the entity whom I want the information to go. So this way, I am able to use my own sort of data for my own benefit. We call it Digital Empowerment and Protection Architecture, DEPA. And DEPA is actually formally a part of the ecosystem of the Government of India's vocabulary. So this is how DEPA is operating. And DEPA is operating at a scale. Of course, this can happen in multiple fields. So for example, the same architecture, if I am actually I'm a patient and I go to a hospital, but I have been to multiple hospitals who have got my records and history and everything else. But I want to, have that information accumulated and actually given to the person, doctor. This architecture can be replicated there, which means digitally I fetch the information through the intermediary like this, and then that information is actually virtually made available to the doctor who can see it on the screen saying that these are my sort of results of let's say lipid profile and other kinds of health information. So digital health records can be made available in a completely safe, secure, and encrypted manner by this architecture. So coming back and summarizing it, our digital infrastructure has succeeded because we have created a frugal and low cost infrastructure. We have just spent 8,000 crores in Aadhar. And the savings in 1 year because of Aadhar has been 91,000 crores. This is actually a statement of the finance minister given in parliament. So this is the scale. The return on investment. Imagine a total money spent 8,000 crores. Total money saved in 1 year 91,000 crores. So basically, we created frugal and low cost infrastructure. We created minimalistic. We created inclusive and encouraged diversity, because India is not really, in that sense, India is 22 countries. There are 22 official languages, hundreds of the dialects, etc. And we have created that for diversity. Scalable by design for 1 billion, interoperable, open standards, private companies. And actually, we have 3 policies in Government of India. And I'm lucky to have kind of been instrumental or being a part of drafting of those policies, which is basically policy on open standards, policy on open API, and policy on open source. So we encourage open source kind of development of infrastructure. And of course, we are not, while the frugal and low cost technology doesn't mean that we are also compromising technology. We have a robust and cutting edge technology. So this is the first part, and I think I don't know how much time I have, but I'll take another 15 minutes if that's okay, sir. Okay, thanks. So now I'll talk about the challenges of this era, and here it's a little depressing story. Let me forewarn, because while the first story is a extremely invigorating and extremely wonderful thing which India has done, but all this, you will realize that all this has been done from a service delivery point of view. All this has been done from a point of view where we are looking at a governance issue. presenceless, paperless, cashless government. And all these artifacts actually make citizens' life easy. That's the broad thought. Now, what has happened parallelly, there have been developments, and these developments are little kind of disconcerting. One is we have to realize that digital is going to be central to every service delivery area, healthcare, education, as Dr. Gupta in the beginning itself spoke. Education, healthcare, textiles, transportation, manufacturing, urban, everywhere you are going to have digital. And now digital is going to be AI, big data, machine to machine communication, all these, Internet of Things. We are going to have 50 billion devices connected in the next 2 or 3 years in the whole world. This is how things are going to develop. So this is really overwhelming. The technological developments are going to be overwhelming, but these are going to transform almost every sector of the economy. And that is how I say that now digital technologies are not a vertical, they are actually a platform, horizontal, permeating in every platform. So that's what is going to happen. Now, another development which has happened is that along with these developments, tech platforms are some of the richest, most powerful companies of the new digital age. If you look at the companies, there are Fortune 500 companies in the last 10 years before, you will find many oil companies, many real estate companies, many construction companies, big giants. Today, there is nothing. Out of the first 10, 6 or 7, I believe, are these tech companies. So you have Amazon for e-commerce, you have Google for search, mobile, OS, Play Stores, mail, fintech, everything. Phone and computers, you have Apple, you have Facebook for social media, you have Twitter. So these are big tech companies, and their actually earnings, their size, their valuations are trillions and trillions of dollars. Google has 10 trillion kind of sort of valuation, more than that. So they are huge, and they are actually larger than the country. And what has happened is they have become highly arrogant, and the problems which they are creating are as follows. One is, because they are business entities, they are basically earning money, so therefore they are not interoperable. They don't want to share anything. There used to be a platform, many of you may remember, a platform called social media platform called Orkut. Orkut was a German platform, and basically it was doing something similar to what Facebook does. And Orkut is nowhere. Only social media, only Facebook remains. So because they are non-interoperable by design, I can't take away my data from Facebook and put it on some Orkut or some other Indian developed platform. So that is why they don't allow anybody to develop, anybody to, they employ all kinds of tricks for killing everybody. One is non-interoperable. Then secondly, high network effect. If all my friends are on Facebook, I might as well be on Facebook, because otherwise there's no use of me being anywhere. If I am on some प्लेटफॉर्म वेयर 10 आदमी बड़े हुए हैं तो ठीक है भाई, 10 आदमियों के बीच में हम कर सकता हूं, but I am not going to be kind of on the larger platform. So this is like a balloon. They keep on creating large and large and large, and therefore lastly only one person remains, only one entity remains. So these two, because of these two reasons, now they are monopolistic. And what is happening, and how do they engage in unethical practices? Let me point out some unethical practices. There are 3 formulae which they employ. This is and that is how they destroy competition. So one is they copy. So for example, there is a small platform which comes up with some innovative ideas. Now they realize, ये तो बहुत अच्छा कर रहा है, इसमें तो ये फैसिलिटी है, इसमें ये फीचर है, or they will also create that, they will copy that feature. So they copy. That's one part. They acquire. So basically उनको लगा कि भाई ये कॉपी में सही नहीं कर रहा है, फिर भी ये अच्छा है, इसको इनोवेशन ज्यादा है, तो दे से भाई बेच दो हमको कंपनी. हो गया, नहीं बेचेंगे तो नहीं बेचेंगे तो ठीक है, हम देखेंगे आपको कि कैसे उसका एग्जाम भी करेंगे, लेकिन नेक्स्ट स्ट्रेटजी इज अक्वायर. So for example, Hotmail was acquired, for example WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook. So there are a lot of acquisitions which are taking place. Then if the fellow is so this thing, मैं तो acquire भी नहीं करने दूंगा आपको. So then they kill. And how do they kill? So for example, there is a e-commerce platform. उस e-commerce platform पे कोई चीज 5 रुपए की बिक रही है. उन्होंने ऐसी एल्गोरिथम बना दी कि 5 रुपए पे इसकी बिक रही है, तो मैं अपने में इसको 4 रुपए में बेचने लगूंगा. So then, I will kill that. I will kill that other company. वो बिल्कुल बेकार हो जाएगी. And there are multiple examples of such type, and I don't want to kind of get into those details. But essentially, they are able to kill. So the 3 formulae: copy, kill, or acquire. This is what they do, and they kill competition. So, and then of course, interesting. The platforms are supposed to be platforms. They are not supposed to be running their own trains. So these guys, what they do, उनको पता है कि इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे, मान लीजिए अमेजोन का प्लेटफॉर्म है, उसमें लाखों लोग सामान बेच रहे हैं. उनको पता है ये सामान बढ़िया बिक रहा है, इसको बड़ी प्रॉफिट मिल रही है. बिकॉज दे हैव गॉट ऑल द डेटा, व्हाट दे डू, दे पुट अप देयर ओन सेलर्स ऑन द प्लेटफॉर्म. So they are the referees, and they also become players. And because they know everything about other people don't know about them, they are able to unethically acquire monopolies and again acquire profits. So essentially, they are players on their platform. In fact, Amazon is doing that, Cloudera or Cloudtail or whatever. There are multiple. I don't know the names, but they are actually, they become sellers. उनको पता लगा कि ये आइटम बढ़िया बिक रहा है, अच्छा प्रॉफिट है, इसको चलो इसी को बेचने लगते हैं. अमेजोन का अपना ब्रांडेड करके बेचने लगते हैं. दिस इज वेरी अनएथिकल. यू आर डूइंग योर ओन. एंड इमेजिन, अभी कुछ दिनों पहले गूगल ने पेटीएम को ब्लॉक कर दिया. आपने पढ़ा होगा, पेटीएम को ब्लॉक कर दिया. तो क्यों किया? गूगल पे उनका एप्लीकेशन है. पेटीएम अपना अपील करेगा, अपील तो उन्हीं के पास करेगा, तो अपील करेगा उनके पास, और उन्होंने अपना ब्लॉक कर दिया बिकॉज दे हैव अ कंपीटिंग एप्लीकेशन. दे हैव अ कंपटीटर. दे आर कंपटीटर एक्चुअली. So once you stop something for 6 months, डिजिटल दुनिया में इतनी तो मेमोरी किसी की रहती नहीं, वो पेटीएम भी कहीं था, तो they will all come on the Google Pay. So this is the kind of thing. They are having their monopolies on the Play Store. For example, Google has Play Store. अब Play Store में किसको लगाएगा, किसको नहीं लगाएगा, that's the most effective distribution platform. They will not allow others to do it, or they will block them, or they will do something or the other. This is what they do. So essentially, because of the monopolistic nature, they are able to wield huge amount of power, and that huge amount of power actually is now giving them huge amount of arrogance. Now, wriggle out of laws. They are not really, they say, bhai, hum to, if you want to govern them, they will say, humne nahi, we are governed by California laws. We are not governed by you. Who are you? So they are, वो तो सरकारों को आके दिखाते हैं. तो ये जो स्थिति है, अभी आपने देखा होगा, कुछ लोगों को बुलाया, फेसबुक वालों को नहीं आए, फिर वो अपना बहुत सारी चीजें चल रही है. So this is again a very sad state of affairs, and India is a very large market. हम लोग तो तब भी हमारे कहने पे कुछ कर देंगे. छोटे छोटे कंट्रीज को तो मतलब कुछ समझते नहीं है कि ये तो फालतू है. So this is what is happening. They wriggle out of laws, and they have huge lawyers. They can pay billions and billions of the. You remember Facebook some years back in 2016 came up with something called free basics. फ्री बेसिक्स ऐसी स्कीम थी जिसमें कहा गया था कि हम कुछ वेबसाइट्स को एम्पैनल कर लेंगे, उन वेबसाइट्स पर अप्रोच करने के लिए आपको पैसा नहीं देना पड़ेगा कस्टमर. अरे हमने कहा कि भाई इंटरनेट तो एक जो है फ्री प्लेटफॉर्म है, ओपन प्लेटफॉर्म है. इस तरह से तो आप जो है पूरा का पूरा इंटरनेट को कैनिबलाइज कर दीजिएगा, इंटरनेट को एकदम बाल्कनाइज कर दीजिएगा. यू नॉट अलाउ दैट टू हैपन. एंड देन व्हाट हैपेंड? मिस्टर जकरबर्ग वाज गिविंग लेक्चर्स on the Indian televisions, many of you may remember, saying that I am giving digital freedom to Indians. I went to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad and I said, sir, who is the information technology minister of this country, Zuckerberg or you? So essentially, then of course Mr. Prasad was very, nahi Ram Sewak ji, aisa nahi hona chahiye, ye to galat ho raha. And then actually the entire government stood by me and said, yes, what you are doing is correct. And we banned free basics. And after we banned free basics, Egypt, all these big countries also banned free basics. But that's only one example. We could do that. Now, can you today ban WhatsApp? There are 200 million users of WhatsApp in this country, 400 millions, I don't know. So these guys are very big. And of course, the last is snoop, amass, and misuse user data. They do that. Cambridge Analytica is one example, and many examples. So what is happening? Just 3 examples I'll give. Google actually said that I will not pay for advertisement on Odia and Punjabi. Now they are actually, and for other Indian language YouTube videos, they will pay the ad whatever AdSense or whatever that revenue comes. Users also get. You must have seen that. मेरे channel को subscribe कीजिए वगैरह वगैरह. Now they are deciding as to which language will win and which will lose. Now similarly, Walmart, Amazon face 70 million Indian shopkeepers. Google takes Paytm off Play Store and policy with violations. So this is what these guys are doing. Now, how do you control them? How do you control them? That's a big question. So I think my solution to that is, and actually it's a solution which, if it all we work together, similar to what we did in Digital India, similar to what we did in Digital Leapfrog, we can do the same thing here. What we do, we need to own the digital infrastructure on which big tech platforms operate. Now, this is the only way to prevent digital, and actually I call it digital colonization. It's a digital colonization which is happening. We are all producing data, and we are just consuming their services and enriching them, and that's how the whole thing is working. So we think that we are having a lot of facilities, but at the same time we are really becoming digital colonies of these guys, and they will be able to manipulate our systems without being. अंग्रेज तो यहाँ आकर के राज किया, इन्होंने बिना राज किए हुए यहाँ मतलब बिना आए हुए पूरी तरह से हमें कंट्रोल करेंगे. इसका तरीका क्या है? इसका तरीका ये है, आप पूछिएगा. अच्छा, एनीवे वो तो बात, ये तरीका ये है कि अगर आप मुझसे पूछे या कोई सवाल पूछूं कि भाई इंटरनेट कौन ओन करता है, इंटरनेट को कोई ओन नहीं करता. Nobody owns internet. Can you think of any entity which is as big as having 6 billion, 7 billion connections, all disparate operating systems, different things still connected, और उसको कोई ओनर नहीं, उसका कोई कंट्रोलर नहीं? ये कैसे है? तो बेसिकली ये इसलिए है कि जो इंटरनेट के प्रोटोकॉल्स बनाए गए, वो प्रोटोकॉल्स ओपन प्रोटोकॉल्स हैं, वो प्रोटोकॉल्स इंक्लूसिव प्रोटोकॉल्स हैं. मैं अगर अपने घर में बैठ करके अपना ये TCP IP प्रोटोकॉल अगर मेरा इंटरनेट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर करेगा, तो आई एम कनेक्टेड टू इंटरनेट, आई एम कनेक्टेड टू ऑल ऑफ यू. So therefore, internet is the most democratic platform, most inclusive platform, and I think we need to create an internet of such these social platforms, e-commerce platforms, other domain platforms. That's the only way we can do it. So essentially what we require is we require not exactly the मतलब कुछ लोगों ने, European Commission is fining Facebook. Some Americans are, Senate is saying we will break Google or we will break Facebook. Now breaking, fining, etc., this is not a solution. In fact, Europeans are doing that because now they find कि भाई सब तो American company कर रहा है, हमारे पास तो कुछ है नहीं. So this is I think it is very situation which actually fine will not solve that problem. We had actually taken on the smart card lobby because everybody was saying in 2010 that Aadhar, smart card के बिना Aadhar नहीं चलेगा. We have taken the smart card lobby in UPI also. Then of course, what is important is we have open protocols across sectors. We need to have open protocol like UPI. We need to create UPI for health. We need to create UPI for agriculture. We need to create UPI for e-commerce. This and that, what will happen is that platform will be inclusive platform. That platform will be non-discriminatory platform. That platform will be actual platform for India. And believe me, it is possible to do it. It may look very difficult at this point in time because these guys are very, very good markets, very good marketeers. We can do it. So I think what we have the right policies, as I explained to you, open APIs, open source, open standard. And we know it. We have done it in the payment space, in the digital identity space, in many other areas, GST network, in many other things we have done it. We will have to design open protocols and APIs that enable open, free, and fair competition for digital companies, sector by sector. This is what is required to be done. And unless we do it, there's no other way, believe me, fining, banning, etc., nothing will work. But this will work. in broadcasting, sector which we try was actually regulating. There is a policy. There is a very interesting policy called must carry and must provide. Must carry means any DTH platform will have to carry a channel if a channel wants to be carried on that. Similarly, if any DTH platform wants a channel to be carried onto its platform, the channel will have to provide this. Therefore, if you have a situation where anybody who wants to come can come, and that platform wants somebody to come, that fellow will have to come and on that platform. This way, we can build an inclusive, open, API-based platform. And some of the entities, there are some private initiatives which are actually doing, which is the backend open credit and enablement framework, Swasth Open Health Services Network. This is being done. In fact, the National Digital Health Mission, which the Honorable Prime Minister has launched on 15th of August, and which actually is now going to be rolled out in the whole country, is a platform, is something which is being done, which is actually inclusive, which will have all the health providers, all the application providers, all the digital records, everything will be there. So I think that's the way forward. The states, unfortunately, have not been able to do much because they lack technology capacity. They have interdepartmental and interstate coordination, and they're focusing solely on e-governance. This is actually a problem which is not a governance problem. It's a problem which is a large technological problem, but the problem which is solvable. And that can be solved only when everybody comes together. And believe me, Aadhar cannot be done by a private agency. Aadhar could not have been done by some big firm. No, it can be done only by government. Similarly, governments will have to actually bless this whole project, this whole ecosystem building, and they should provide the anchor. Then and only then it will actually succeed. So of course, the world is now recognizing the World Bank, United Nations, Bank of International Settlement, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They are all recognizing the India's open infrastructure. Government of Australia, UK, Singapore, Morocco, Nigeria. Morocco, in fact, I had gone to Morocco and lectured them for 5 days in 2016, and actually they are now doing exactly Aadhar type of project with the help of the World Bank. So this is how they are doing it. Philippines is doing it. So that's how. So I want to conclude by saying that the right digital infrastructure and institutional mechanism to export them can give India hard muscle and soft power. And that is what I call digital diplomacy for our friends, Mr. Goyal and Mr. Srivastav, that we need to have digital diplomacy as one of the verticals in this game. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry if I've taken more time than what was given to me.
No, it's been fascinating listening to you, Mr. Sharma. I think you have opened our eyes to many things which we did not know. Firstly, how far we have already come in this application of digital infrastructure, and we created so many things. And good to hear that most of what we have created is inclusive and low cost and reliable. And you also touched upon the growing power of these big tech companies. And you also suggested a solution as to how to deal with them, which is by open protocols across the various sectors, and the important role that the government can play in doing so. Having done several such things in the last few years, there is no reason why we cannot multiply this. So this has been a very, very educative session. And thank you very much. Of course, in the challenges, one could also probably discuss the question of security, the cyber security aspect of it, because there are many, many challenges in that area. There are already some questions, and I now open the floor. First question is from Surinder Sharma, who is asking whether there is any possibility that this system can be misused by Hawala dealers. And then I think Mr. Rangachari also wants to ask a question. I'll request him to come in, but let me first रंगाचारी जी आप अभी पूछना चाहेंगे क्वेश्चन 2-3 क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं प्लीज you have put it there but you can ask a question and then Governor Shekhar Dutt. Yeah. Ambassador Rangachari?
Here, I put it in writing because I thought it would save time.
इसको summarize जरा कर दीजिए. I couldn't read it properly.
Well, basically, what's happening is that today educational institutions are all in online teaching mode, and the connectivity is patchy. We know that from a number of newspaper reports and so on. Is there any proposal to develop a pathway, digital pathway for educational purposes exclusively? And if it is funded by the Government of India, it could be made available free to educational institutions. Currently, they are paying a fairly hefty amount for using the platforms that are available through Google, etc. That was the question.
Okay. Governor Shekhar Dutt.
Good afternoon, everybody. I must congratulate Mr. Sharma for an excellent presentation. I have actually, having dealt with the security issues which Arvind had just said, I have a question that, in India, we don't print semiconductors. We have hardly any organization which brings out semiconductors. In the defense and we have all sort of organizations in Bangalore, Bharat Electronics and DRDO's in Hyderabad. And those are used for our missile development and missile control, things like that. So those are exclusively for defense, but there are a whole lot of other places which are dependent on digital India, say financial transactions, transportation, then the power distribution, power grid management, and all these, which I think are extremely vulnerable because we don't have our own semiconductors. We don't have integrated circuits made in India, and therefore we are using others which have been made elsewhere. And having been in the security setup earlier, I think if I want to plan, if I were my adversary, I would put a bug in any of those control systems, and then I'll become very vulnerable. So,
okay, thank you. So, Sharma ji, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, bilkul, sir. I think one is that this first question by Mr. Rangachari, which is the schools and connectivity. Actually, I think while we have number of these connections are very large, etc., we must also realize that our internet infrastructure or our connectivity infrastructure is largely wireless. And just to give you some figures, 46% of the world's data consumption happens from fixed line networks, and only 54% happens through wireless networks. Now, in our case, it is 93% on wireless and only 7% on fixed line. We have only 20 million fixed lines in year 2000, and now we probably have 17 million fixed lines, which is 3 million less than what we had in 2000. Now we have 1.2 billion, wireless connections. So what happens is wireless actually is a very unreliable medium because of kitni speed pe hai, tower kahan hai, bahut sari cheezein hain. So we don't have a very robust infrastructure. While we have created a very fast infrastructure in wireless, and we are proud of that, but I think what is required is if you want to provide connectivity infrastructure, then you need to have wired infrastructure. BharatNet actually was built to kind of bridge that gap, which is basically creating an optical fiber connectivity at each panchayat. But unfortunately, the BharatNet's business model is not really aligned with the way the services infrastructure may be created, but providing services on that infrastructure is a completely different ballgame, which the government probably cannot play. So that's the problem. But anyway, nevertheless, what is required is we need to have fiber connectivity. Now, incentives are not there for providers to provide fiber connectivity. Why? Because a right of way costs are very huge. For example, laying of a fiber, one fiber costs now 50 rupees per meter. So actually 1 किलोमीटर फाइबर बिछाने के लिए आपको 50,000 रुपए का फाइबर चाहिए, लेकिन बंबई में 1 किलोमीटर फाइबर बिछाने के लिए आपको 1.5 करोड़ रुपए का आपको राइट ऑफ वे के लिए बंबई बृहत म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन को पैसा देना पड़ेगा. Many municipalities see this as an revenue opportunity. So there are policy constraints actually, and just to give you an idea, it's a very depressing idea, but nevertheless let me give it. We have got 1.8 million kilometers of fiber in this country. China actually lays 1.8 million kilometers of fiber every year. This is unfortunately the situation. So, and of course there are many constraints which we have. So what is actually required? It is required to have a policy where you should be able to create ubiquitous connectivity, which is again low cost. When we were in TRAI gave an idea in March of 2017, which basically we called that let us learn from what was the PCO model. Everybody did not have telephone, but you had PCOs, public call office. तो क्या हुआ है, कम्युनिटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर आपने क्रिएट कर दी, लोग आकर के वहां से टेलीफोन करने लगे. मेरे पास टेलीफोन मेरे घर में नहीं है, बट आई कैन डू पीसीओ. हम लोगों ने यही कहा कि पीडीओ बनाइए, पब्लिक डेटा ऑफिस बनाइए, सिमिलर टू पीसीओ, which basically means that जो एक किराना की दुकान के पास जो टेलीफोन है, उस टेलीफोन को आप रेडिएट कर दीजिए. he should be able to provide broadband connectivity through Wi-Fi to its basically to his customers and to people nearby. Similarly, पंचायत में भी उसी प्रकार से Wi-Fi. So essentially we called it Vani, Wi-Fi access network interface, wireless access network interface, Vani. And the whole idea was Vani will be UPI of Wi-Fi, which will basically means that जो connectivity back end तो उतना ही है, लेकिन front end में using the free spectrum we can actually create a grid of the entire country. Unfortunately, this 3.5 years the whole thing has been pending. The Honorable Prime Minister, you will not believe, took 3 meetings in the month of September to essentially say that this has to be done, and hopefully now it is being done. Now, once what happens, हमारे बच्चे सब सेंट्रल स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं या अच्छे डीपीएस में पढ़ते हैं. हमारे बच्चों को तो हमारे घर में सब कुछ है, वाईफाई भी है, फाइबर भी है, सब कुछ है. वो गरीब आदमी का बच्चा, उसके पास तो कुछ भी नहीं, उसके पास तो स्मार्टफोन भी नहीं है. Now, how do you think that he will be able to participate in the digital classes which we have? So essentially, if we create right set of policy, which means जो existing infra है हमारी, उसको maximum utilization करें, number 1. Number 2, इससे क्या होगा कि फाइबर के लिए एक्सेस बढ़ेगा. आपको जानकर आश्चर्य होगा, बीएसएनएल का 6 लाख किलोमीटर फाइबर है, जो कि बिल्कुल मतलब लगभग अनयूज्ड है. उस फाइबर को अगर हम इस्तेमाल करें तो दिस फाइबर कैन एक्चुअली रेडिएट द एंटायर कंट्री, एंड बीएसएनएल भी बदल जाएगा. लेकिन I think we need to have these policies, and there have been delays in actually having this policy. It's very unfortunate, but this is what I would suggest, that connectivity बढ़ाने के लिए यही हो सकता है. Specifically रही बात पेमेंट वगैरह की, कि पेमेंट कौन करेगा, सरकार पेमेंट करेगी नहीं करेगी, these are the models which can develop. Ultimately these are again policy issues which the government can decide, but availability is the first part, then the cost part. अब कॉस्ट कितना भी दे दीजिए, अगर अवेलेबल ही नहीं होगा तो कॉस्ट से क्या मतलब होगा. तो आई थिंक दिस इज व्हाट वी नीड टू डू. वी नीड टू हैव द पब्लिक interoperable Wi-Fi infrastructure in the country where I can go from place 1 to place B. I don't need to authenticate myself. I can just use the internet connection. और जानते हैं कंटेंट डिलीवरी नेटवर्क, आप सोचिए पंचायत में छोटा सा एक स्टोरेज डिवाइस रख दीजिए. आजकल स्टोरेज डिवाइस, एक टीबी की स्टोरेज डिवाइस 5,000 रुपए की आती है. उस स्टोरेज में अगर आप मान लीजिए टेक्स्ट बॉक्स और तरह तरह का मसाला डाल दीजिए, आप वीडियोस डाल दीजिए, एजुकेशनल वीडियोस, बच्चा लोग वहीं से इस्तेमाल करेगा बिना फ्री में. वाईफाई के इस्तेमाल करके अपने जो भी डिवाइस होगी उनकी उस पर डाल लेगा, या पब्लिक उस पर टीवी पर डाल लेगा. तो बेसिकली यू कैन क्रिएट huge content delivery network at each panchayat level. So I think there are certain things which I can expand it offline, but broadly that is the idea. Secondly, to Ambassador Dutt's question about the Semiconductor. Now, semiconductor, sir, is a very, very expensive stuff. Let me tell you, semiconductor fab, Government of India had actually given as much as 90% subsidy. Each semiconductor fab takes about 35,000 crores minimum. And actually, there are two parties. One was Mr. JP of UP, who had actually agreed to build semiconductor fab factory at Noida. Another was an NRI who had agreed to build the semiconductor factory in Gujarat. And the Honorable Prime Minister, who was the Chief Minister at that time, actually had initiated that project. And Government of India agreed to give 29,000 crores out of 35,000 crores to each person as subsidy. And we made all efforts. People just did not put up. In fact, what they said was that semiconductor factories are no more viable, no more profitable, and therefore we just can't do it. So both these guys backed out. So we have, Government of India has made, 90% subsidy is an extremely large subsidy, you can imagine, and 29,000 crores is also a huge amount, but somehow it didn't happen. But it is not as if, sir, that, once the semiconductor fab thing comes, and as you know, it comes like a chip, large fab. Now, of course, size is limiting. 28 millimeters, 15 millimeters is the max, minimum size which is now coming, which is very, very substantial. But we have actually huge advantage in designing the fabs, designing these chips. So we are the world's designers of the chips in Bangalore and other places. We do that. And I'm sure the security aspects which you alluded to, which means that somebody putting a bug in the fab and then finally, that bug being activated at a future time, that I think will be able to be taken care of by our people. It's our inability not to be able to put up a fab factory in this country. And largely because of the fact that many of the fab factories in China and Taiwan, they are actually closing down. The Foxconn, which is the largest, they have fab factories and many other entities. They are actually now closing down because they are no more profitable or whatever. So that's the situation. That's a larger discussion. We can have that discussions are offline. I have some information on that issue, but we actually were very disappointed at the fact that we were not able to put up the stuff. Sir, I am forgetting the first question, which is the
Hawala. Can Hawala dealers use all this infrastructure?
Hawala dealers really cannot use this infrastructure. Obviously,
Yes.
Hawala is some concept which is not actually technology concept alone. It is a much more beyond technology. It's like कोई चोरी करना है तो उसके लिए technology is one part. Technology can sort of stop it or reduce it. But अगर वो करेगा तो फिर वो मतलब करने के लिए तो तरह तरह की बातें कर सकता है. जैसे for example आपने ट्रांसफर किया पैसा, so you can do the paisa transfer, but it is all happening within the banking system of India. See, what is important and what is very good about our country is that we have a very strong banking system and very strong regulatory system in the banks. And all these, in various countries, there's a huge confusion. For example, the mobile payment applications are being run by telcos, telecom companies in many countries. And there is a dispute between the telecom regulator and banking regulator. But I said, since last 5 years, this has been going on as chairman of TRI. I said, no, it is not my job. Telecom companies, telcos are pipes. We are flowing all kinds of data. अगर आप ये करिएगा तो कल मैं कहूंगा कि भाई फाइनेंशियल के लिए भी मैं अड़ंगा लगाऊंगा, कल को होकर के मैं एग्रीकल्चर में भी अड़ंगा लगाऊंगा, मैं हेल्थ में भी अड़ंगा लगाऊंगा, क्यों मेरे पाइप से जा रहा है सब चीज. We are just passage providers. We don't know what contents are there. हम तो हाईवे प्रोवाइड करते हैं, कौन सा ट्रक जा रहा है, कहां जा रहा है, वो ट्रक को गवर्न करने की जिम्मेवारी उसका कंसर्न रेगुलेटर का है. So that way, if Airtel is doing a payment service, Airtel has to have a license from the Reserve Bank of India. Not really that Airtel license of telco will work for him for payment systems. So that way, I think we have a very, beautifully regulated stuff, and all these things are licensed activities which are taking place. And NPCI, RBI, all the banks, public sector banks, they are really doing a great job, and it's a good thing. In fact, now the next thing, UPI also, by the way, has now started having a call service, which means that UPI you can make a collect request. which means that मैंने टैक्सी यूज की और टैक्सी ने मेरे पास रिक्वेस्ट कर दिया तो आप पैसा दे दीजिए तो यूपीआई में रिक्वेस्ट आ जाए. इसी प्रकार से यूपीआई इज आल्सो नाउ डूइंग अ क्रेडिट अरेंजमेंट, व्हिच मींस दैट जिस काम के लिए क्रेडिट दी गई है उसी काम के लिए इस्तेमाल हो, प्लस उसके बाद जब जब रेवेन्यू स्ट्रीम आए वहां से तो वो सीधा सीधा बैंक को पेमेंट हो जाए, व्हिच विल बेसिकली इंप्रूव द viability of the banks and also the certainty of the credit stuff. So I think we are having in a very good regulated environment, and we have not allowed the conservatism of the central banker has actually helped us in this aspect. And of course, you have now digital currency etc. So hawala ke liye और कुछ करना होगा तो that also can be done, but not through these infrastructure which can be used.
Thank you. Ambassador Suresh Goyal.
Thank you very much, Arvind. And thank you, Ram Sevak. That was a very comprehensive and absolutely fabulous presentation. I think for the first time, I was able to understand fully the implications of the digital technology, the platform that we have launched. I have one or two questions really. One relates to the privacy of data. Now, I assume that with the widespread use of Aadhar card for practically every transaction, it should be quite easy for the government to trace the movement of people from one to the other. And how does it impinge on the privacy of movement of a person? Number two, can Aadhar card use also lead to information on the transactions being conducted? For example, if I use Aadhar card to transfer a certain amount of money from one to the other, can the transaction be located by simply knowing the Aadhar card number? Because that is another implication for the privacy of data. Lastly, nowadays, the issue really is not just digital platform, but cyber technology and the evolution of the artificial intelligence. Can the two be combined to create a security issue for people at large? I envisage a time when the artificial intelligence can use these unique IDs for their own, I mean, if they've been programmed to do mischief, it can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think very good question. Yeah, Dr. Sharma.
I think Suresh, you have raised an extremely important question. In fact, probably I should have dealt with that issue, but because the canvas was a little large, so I could not deal with that question. One is, I want to assure you that Aadhar does not violate any privacy, security, does not create a surveillance mechanism, etc. And that question has been answered by the Honorable Supreme Court in the Aadhar judgment, very, very elaborately in 1243-page judgment, which they pronounced. And they actually had 9 questions. And 3 of the main questions was whether Aadhar can profile person, whether Aadhar can create a surveillance structure, and whether Aadhar data can be misused by, sort of other, somebody can misuse my data on others. There is a concept in data technology nowadays, which is called federated data model. Federated data model basically says that I must keep the data, what is necessary for me to do my functions. I should not collect or keep more data than what is necessary. So for example, the way it works is as follows. Suppose I am doing a banking transaction using my Aadhar authentication. Let's say Aadhar enabled payment system. I am basically taking money from some business correspondent, etc. Or I am doing some other digital transaction using my Aadhar number. Now Aadhar does not know. It just actually, the way authentication has been constructed is that you send my Aadhar number along with you send your Aadhar number along with your fingerprint minutiae to the Aadhar database, and Aadhar database just matches it with the that particular record, which is the ID Aadhar number and the fingerprint minutiae, and just responds yes and no. It does not do anything more than that. So it does not know the location, the purpose, and the details of the transaction which I am conducting or I am doing using my Aadhar number. Which means that the transaction data stays with the bank or the institution with whom I'm doing transaction. The Aadhaar data, Aadhaar does not accumulate any data except it creates an authentication ID, which means authentication log. कि एक आधार नंबर X123 ने इस समय ये ऑथेंटिकेट किया और वो ऑथेंटिकेशन सक्सेसफुल रहा या अनसक्सेसफुल रहा, दैट्स ऑल. And also there are other sort of stuff which is basically there is some concept, one is federated data model, which means that you don't keep data when what is required. Secondly, there is also a model called privacy by design. So you design the privacy as a in fact we could not have succeeded the 2017 Aadhaar case saying that Aadhaar is safe if we had not designed it, privacy by design in 2009. 2009 we designed Aadhaar, and actually we took all the care to ensure that there is a privacy and security. Data is encrypted, user is informed about, if you do an authentication, you immediately get on your mail and also on your mobile that you have, done an authentication transaction. So that's all Aadhaar knows. You have done an authentication transaction, that's all. But the other information is not there. So therefore, you cannot collate the information. You cannot actually, in a way, combine the information and create a profile of all the transactions which the person did. All these transaction information stays in silos or in the banks or in the telcos or wherever it is. So that's one part. That's actually very, very important in order to ensure that you are not able to. In fact, interestingly, you may remember, some of you may remember, not all, that in one interview I had said that Aadhaar is just a random number attached to your name. What is there in Aadhaar number? It has no intelligence. It can't tell you whether I'm a man or a woman or old or young or whatever. So what's the problem? So somebody says, "Bhai, आप इतना confident हैं, तो why don't you disclose your Aadhaar?" I said, "ठीक है यार, मेरा आधार ये है, कर लो क्या करना है तुमको." And believe me, nobody could do anything. It is still there on the internet, my Aadhaar number. So in fact, there is a very interesting paper I'll refer it to. There is a professor in IIT Kanpur, mathematics professor, computer science professor, called Professor Maninder Agrawal. Maninder Agrawal is a very, very celebrated professor because he has solved a very complex mathematical problem, which is called the primality test for a number. Whether a number is a prime or not, whether that particular algorithm is in polynomial time or not. I'll not go into that, but that problem was pending since last 200 years. And this is one person who has actually solved that problem. So he's an extremely, powerful mathematician of the whole world. World का है उनका मतलब इस तरह. Primality problem is a very well-known problem of, Paris Institute of Mathematics. Everybody has जो century की problems है, उनमें century की problems थी. Professor Agrawal had submitted to the Supreme Court a paper, a thesis, which you can actually probably find on the internet, which says that Aadhaar does not increase the digital vulnerability of anybody. Which means that जो vulnerability आपकी है, अगर आपका पासवर्ड कमजोर है तो आपका पासवर्ड करके कोई आदमी हैक कर लेगा अकाउंट, वो अलग चीज है. आपके सिस्टम्स की vulnerability अलग चीज है. आधार सबके लिए जिम्मेदार नहीं हो सकता. लेकिन आधार does not increase your digital vulnerability. So that's one part I want to tell you. Yes, there are large number of cyber security issues, and I did not deal with them at all. In China, there is an army of 50,000 persons, all of you know, or maybe more than that, which basically उसका काम ही है ये हैक करना, systems को हैक करना. And systems को हैक करना, देखिए दुनिया में connected world में अगर हमारी रेलवे सिस्टम पे चल रही है, हमारे बैंक सब चल रही है और हमारा हैक हो जाएगा तो पूरी पूरी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर खत्म हो जाएगी, डूब जाएगी. So therefore, it's an extremely important problem, and I think one should not say कि हम सब safe हैं और बिल्कुल जो usual हम लोगों का होता है कि भाई हमको कुछ नहीं होगा. ये this is in an unlikely event है, ये unlikely event नहीं है, ये बहुत ही likely event है, and we should actually keep on hardening our systems. There is no denying in that. But I think only thing which we can do is to ensure that we use the best encryption methods, best security, best physical security, virtual security, whatever. So I think that is what we should continue to do. We should be alert, and we should also develop an extremely, a very, very agile cyber security strategy, which I think I'm sure the professionals in that area are doing. But the comfort part is that it's not possible for the digital, identity system to create such profiling, though it looks like You might have heard there is a, this Facebook, etc. There's a the concept in graph theory. Graph theory talks of, edges from one node to another node. Now, Aadhaar is basically a one-way node. You can just seed Aadhaar into a database, but that's about all. Aadhaar loses all connection with that. Aadhaar does not know which database has been seeded with me. So, somebody, there was an article in newspaper, it says कि भाई EPFO के कुछ वो हो गए थे, compromise हो गए थे कुछ accounts. So the headline was Aadhaar data compromised. Then I said, it is like saying कि किसी के घर से कैश चोरी हो गया, तो आपने कहा RBI data compromised because cash पे RBI के नंबर रहते हैं. This is not the way it is. You should worry about the EPFO data. You should not worry about the Aadhaar data. Aadhaar number is a very inanimate 12-digit random number. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't prove anything. It just, if God had made a system where each person had an individual name and that name was not repeated, then you did not need Aadhaar number. The name would have been the unique identity, right? You are attaching it because you have so many Suresh Goyal, so many Ram Sevaks in this world, and therefore you say, भाई इनका number ये है, उनका number ये है. तो ये इस तरह की बात है. Thank you very much.
So we'll come to the last set of questions now. This is really about the future. So the two of our faculty members are asking questions about India's future in terms of carbon chips. That's the new area of research instead of silicon chips. Then 5G, 6G, and cryptocurrencies. And if I may add here, also this quantum computing, which can provide this cybersecurity, robustness in cybersecurity. If you would like to just give us some idea about how you look at the future.
No, sir, my sense is that actually now it is not that era where West was, we were looking towards West to see that some technological development takes place there and then it will come to us. It is not. It is actually some technological development takes place here and then it takes place in Bangalore. Maybe that's not, Bangalore guys don't have the IPR, but essentially they are the ones who develop technology and then it goes to the West. In many models, we have not, looked up to West. Digital identity, we not looked up to West. In payment system, we have not looked up to. In many digital innovations and digital artifacts, we have been ahead of West in some sense because we have had more innovative, more robust technologies. Now coming to the question of 5G, carbon chips, and
Cryptocurrencies.
Cryptocurrency is actually something which you need to have a very clear policy, because this is something which is now, whether you have a law or don't have a law, it's like same, even if you don't have a law, make it illegal, it is going to be there. Honestly, that's not, you can't sort of stop it that way. You can probably catch people, but problem ये है सर कि टेक्नोलॉजी के जमाने में कोई भी चीज टेक्नोलॉजी के जहां टेक्नोलॉजी इनेबल कर सकती है, फिर आप उसको इलीगल डिक्लेयर कर दीजिए, तो इलीगल डिक्लेयर करने से कोई फायदा होता नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल, मेकिंग द इंटरनेट कॉल्स वर इलीगल एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम. टेलकोज ने कहा कि भाई इंटरनेट से कॉल मत कीजिए. अमेरिका में आप उस समय जब मान लीजिए 10 रुपया पर मिनट लगता था, अमेरिका में आप 2 सेंट में कॉल कर देते थे इंटरनेट पे. Then finally, you have to give it up. Now, WhatsApp enables internet calls, and even telcos are now enabling voice over IP calls. So it is something which is happening. So making it illegal probably is not a solution. It is my personal view, of course. I don't have a policy brief for the government, but what I'm saying is that tactically and strategically, I think we should not go into that path of declaring something illegal. I think we should think of ways and means to, make some effect on the thing. Maybe regulate it, and in a manner which is a light touch regulation, as is the case. That's one thing which I can say, because this is unfortunately not going to go away. Then the other part, 5G. Let's come to 5G. Now 5G, my situation is, my recommendations to the government have been, for any technology, especially 5G, you require a spectrum. Now without a spectrum, you can't have 5G, right? And there are certain bands which are required for 5G, 3.3 to 3.6 gigahertz, and there are other bands also which are more suitable to 5G deployment. Now, unfortunately, government has not been auctioning those bands. Probably because some telcos are saying कि अभी आप ऑक्शन मत कीजिए, अभी हम नहीं ले पाएंगे, पैसा नहीं है हमारे पास. Some fellows are saying कि हाँ कर दीजिए ऑक्शन, बिकॉज उनको लगता है कि कोई कंपटीशन नहीं होगा तो मैं सस्ते में खरीद लूंगा. तो ये सब चीजें, मेरा अपना विचार ये है कि ऑक्शन इज अ पेरिसेबल रिसोर्स. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि आपने ये ऑक्शन, मान लीजिए कोई स्पेक्ट्रम है जिसको आज यूज नहीं किया तो आज का कल यूज कर लीजिएगा. मान लीजिए आपके पास कोई एक खदान है जिस खदान में कोयला है. मैं धनबाद में, मैं डिप्टी कमिश्नर रहा हूं, तो धनबाद में कोयला है नीचे. तो अगर कोयले को आज नहीं खोदेंगे तो मान लीजिए परसों खोद लेंगे तो ठीक है, मिल जाएगा. लेकिन स्पेक्ट्रम तो ऐसी चीज है कि आज का स्पेक्ट्रम आज गया, कल दूसरा स्पेक्ट्रम होगा, परसों तीसरा स्पेक्ट्रम होगा. सो देयरफॉर स्पेक्ट्रम, once you are, the day is gone, spectrum is gone. It's like, having an empty seat on an aircraft. It's a perishable resource. So therefore मेरा अपना मानना ये है, we should actually auction all spectrum. और ये ऑक्शन जो हुआ है ना, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने बहुत एक मीटिंग में, मुझे डिस्क्लोज मैं करूंगी न करूं मुझे नहीं जानता हूं, लेकिन ऐसे बहुत कोई वो बनी, उन्होंने ये कहा कि ये स्पेक्ट्रम का ऑक्शन हमने वीआईपी इवेंट क्यों बना दिया है कि जबरदस्ती स्पेक्ट्रम ऑक्शन हो रहा है तो लगता है जैसे फेल हो गया, पास हो गया. अरे फेल पास क्या है, हमारे पास, सरकार के पास एक रिसोर्स है, हम उस रिसोर्स को बेच रहे हैं. लेवाल है तो है, नहीं लेवाल है तो कोई बात नहीं, अगले दिन बेच देंगे, अगले साल बेच देंगे. तो ये जो चीज है, जब तक आप स्पेक्ट्रम नहीं दीजिएगा तब तक 5G में कौन काम करेगा. बिकॉज इट्स लाइक कि उसको सर्टेनिटी नहीं होगी, पता नहीं मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा. मैं यहाँ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट करूं और स्पेक्ट्रम ना मिले तो बेकार हो जाएगा. तो देयरफॉर आई थिंक व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड इज, वन इज auction of a spectrum, which is actually 5G. Secondly, enabling trials to happen. Because अगर 5G का ट्रायल ही नहीं होगा हमारे देश में, यूज केसेस ही नहीं बनेंगे हमारे देश में, और तो फिर लोग भी ट्रेंड नहीं होंगे हमारे लोग. So I think 5G trials also should start. We had started the trials, but then the government stopped it. Now I think they have made a policy for trial, and I'm sure these trials will also start very soon. मुझे तो मेरा विश्वास है कि शायद स्टार्ट हो भी गया उनको. मैं 1.5 महीने से तो मैं थोड़ा अपनी छुट्टी एंजॉय कर रहा हूं, तो उसमें पता नहीं है, मुझे अखबार पढ़ना भी मैंने बंद कर दिया है. मैंने सोचा कि 42-43 साल के बाद कम से कम थोड़ा बिल्कुल एक दूसरे फेज में जाके देखा जाए. तो ये बहुत जरूरी है, ट्रायल सर बहुत जरूरी है, और ऑक्शन बहुत जरूरी है. और उसके बाद देखिए यूज केसेस तो आएंगे हमारे देश में. मान लीजिए ड्राइवरलेस कार की जरूरत ना हो, लेकिन हमारे देश में बहुत सारे और यूज केसेस हैं. एक फिक्स्ड वायरलेस एक्सेस बोलते हैं, FWA. तो बेसिकली क्या है कि आप फाइबर कहीं ऑन द कर्ब तक ले जाइए, उसके बाद पूरे एरिया में आप वायरलेस के थ्रू एक्सेस कर सकते हैं 5G के माध्यम से. तो 5G इज एन एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट टेक्नोलॉजी, एंड इट्स नॉट एन इंक्रीमेंटल टेक्नोलॉजी. 5G की 3 कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं. वन, हेवी थ्रूपुट, वेरी ह्यूज थ्रूपुट, मतलब टेराबाइट्स ऑफ डेटा कैन एक्चुअली ट्रांसमिट. देन सेकेंडली, ह्यूज मशीन टू मशीन कम्युनिकेशन, मशीन से मशीन. तो जितने ऑटोमेटेड इंडस्ट्री 4.0 और बाकी सब चीजें हो सकती है 5G के माध्यम से, उसी प्रकार से वेरी लो लेटेंसी. जैसे मान लीजिए आप सैटेलाइट से बात करते हैं तो आपको लगता है कि 1 सेकंड का या आधे सेकंड का कुछ गैप हो गया. ये जो है बहुत कम लेटेंसी में चलता है. ऑफ कोर्स एवरीथिंग गोज बाय द स्पीड ऑफ लाइट, बट स्टिल इट्स अ वेरी लो लेटेंसी. सो लेटेंसी लो होने से जैसे माइनिंग के एप्लीकेशंस हैं, ड्राइवरलेस कार्स हैं, बहुत सारी चीजें चल सकती हैं. तो ये 3 चीजें जो है ना, इसको डिस्टिंग्विश करती हैं, और इसमें बहुत हमें आगे बढ़ना चाहिए. तो मेरा अपना विचार है कि 5G में वी शुड गो अहेड, बिकॉज अदरवाइज थोड़ा पीछे हम लोग छूट जाएंगे. कार्बन के बारे में, मैं कार्बन चिप्स के बारे में सब, माफ कीजिएगा, मैं बहुत ज्यादा मेरी जानकारी नहीं है कि क्या है ये मामला. बट इफ आई सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंक इट इज द सेम थिंग लाइक द सिलिकॉन चिप्स, तब फिर मैं कर पाऊंगा. लेकिन मुझे आइडिया ज्यादा नहीं है, और क्या प्रयास हो रहा है इसके बारे में मुझे नहीं पता.
एक्चुअली जो इशू 5G का ये प्रॉब्लम ये आ रही थी, वो हुआवे वाले जो बीच में आ रहे थे, क्योंकि सारी टेक्नोलॉजी उन्होंने डेवलप किया है. दे हैव टेकन अ लीड, दे हैव स्पेंट लॉट ऑफ मनी ऑन R&D, एंड दे आर गोइंग टू सेल इट टू द वेरियस पीपल. So the question was that Huawei, if they come into this 5G area in India, तो हमारे सारे नेटवर्क्स और सारा हमारा जो है उनके हाथ में चला जाएगा, which will create huge security issues. So I think
I agree with you, but the problem is Huawei question is an orthogonal question to the to the spectrum auction and to the trials. If you think Huawei should not come, don't allow Huawei. Who is actually, there is no law which says that Huawei को आप बंद नहीं कर सकते. आप कहिए Huawei नहीं आएगा. So ultimately, it's a decision which now it can also happen that we decide as a country that ठीक है Huawei आएगा, लेकिन हमको ये चाहिए कि भाई हमारे लिए Huawei कोई सिक्योरिटी प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट ना कर सके. संभवतः ब्रिटेन ने ऐसा काम किया है. उन्होंने कहा कि भाई मेरा सोर्स कोड वगैरह जो भी होगा आपका वो मेरे कब्जे में रहेगा, मेरा अपना होगा, उसमें मैं डालूंगा. So there is probably, you can probably dissociate software and hardware. I'm not a qualified person in that sense. बहुत ज़्यादा मुझे heavy knowledge उसका नहीं है. But I think you can ban Huawei, B, allow Huawei with certain preconditions and certain kind of security mechanisms put in place, which actually give you the required amount of surety and required amount of assurance. And C, allow Huawei, because Huawei does offer a huge amount of incentive in terms of money. Ericsson or Nokia, there are other two players, and ZTE of course Chinese. Ericsson and Nokia की जो rates हैं, Huawei is actually giving dirt cheap. So all the telcos चिल्लाते रहते हैं कि भाई हमको Huawei को करने दीजिए because हमारे लिए बहुत सस्ता हो जाएगा, otherwise we'll be costly. So cost-wise they are cheap because essentially they have invested in technology. That's number one. And number two, government of China is supporting them. So now it's a question, which the security establishment and this thing, they probably will have to really DOT or DOT can only provide the technical expertise or technical advice. But I think largely it is a question which has to be decided at the policy level by the security architecture of the country. But that should not preclude us from going ahead with trials or going ahead with the spectrum auction, because ये किसने कहा है कि आप trial बिना Huawei के नहीं जा सकते? There are other companies which are ready to do trials. Ericsson is ready to do trials. Nokia is ready to do trials.
So thank you very much. I think it's been a fascinating discussion. We learned a lot of things, and there were many other questions which probably in the future discussions we can handle. I think cybersecurity needs to be discussed a little bit at greater depth. And I think one question which you raised, which is this enormous power of these COFA companies, and you talked about open standards and protocols. And that's a very important question, because in this technology world, India must be at the forefront of setting these standards. After all, in 5G, etc., most of the standards are being set by the Huawei, because they are the people who put money in the R&D, etc. So I think standards in technology, how good we are in that, that needs to be. So while the government has done very well in terms of identifying the opportunities, putting things together, etc., but the underlying hardcore technologies, there I think still whether it is because our IPRs are still very poor, whether it is the chips, which you said that perhaps we cannot do the chips, but chip designing. But I think that is probably not enough, because in so many other discussions, we feel that everybody says that we should, and we have been actually saying it for the last 20 years. And why 20 years? Even the 80s, we had the Semiconductor Corporation and the chip designing semiconductor complex that was set up in Mohali, and that was burnt at one point of time. But I think we have to revisit that. And now with new chip technologies coming in, now there's also this question about 6G. If 5G is, we have missed the technology bus, then maybe 6G we can do something, because that will probably in 10 years, that would be the new technology. So what is happening in that area? So technology front is a horizon. Beyond the horizon, there are many technologies. The problem is not that somebody invents technology in Bangalore. I'm sure all technologies will be invented in Bangalore, Gurgaon, and other places. But whether we as government and as society are able to take advantage, like we did in the case of Aadhar, etc., took the frontline position and were able to make these huge, massive platforms. But this is the same thing we have to do in hardcore technologies also. And there, of course, it has many other issues like electronics, etc. You have dealt with them as Secretary Meti. Now we have new schemes, PLI, etc., where we are going to do hardware manufacturing and Make in India program. So those are also very important. And about this chip, I think it's a really a sad story. You were saying that we were ready to give 29,000 crore rupees, almost 80-90% subsidy. Why not give 100% and just make it, there's more, 5,000-6,000 more. There are many people who would the government itself should set up a chip manufacturing factory. If it is, we can upgrade our semiconductor complex, which is there now. It goes by the name of Sitar. I think ISRO, etc., are making some chips, but that is not very fine quality. So why not use that money and make our own? So there are many areas in technology area which can be taken as missions and which will really rejuvenate our youth. It will rejuvenate our education system. It will rejuvenate our technology ecosystem, startup system, etc. So I think some very big technology projects government should really take. But anyway, we could discuss these in the future. But I really want to thank you for taking time and sharing with us your experience of this very important area, particularly Aadhar, and you clarified many of the doubts and the misconceptions that you had. So let's give a virtual hand to him and thank him for joining us today. Please involve with us in future also. And thank you, Dinkar, for bringing such an eminent personality to the VIF. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been a privilege talking to all of you. And if I can say just one last line, I think India needs to create an institutional mechanism or a very mission and focused institution to tackle this big tech problem, because I think big tech problem is a very serious problem, and that could also include other digital sovereignty related stuff like the chips or the other issues. Because I think we have to guard our digital independence, because it's so important in today's world, which is a boundaryless virtual world, and where from the attack will come, where from the threat will come, where from the whole thing will come, we don't know. And I think we need to have a very concerted, holistic sort of approach to this problem, which should not be, just in the compartments and departments confined. I think we need to have a larger vision, and we need to have an institutional mechanism which can look into these issues. Thank you, sir. It has been a privilege and pleasure to, talk to you.
Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Namaskar.